Hello, my name is Brittany, and I'm one of the History and Highlights tour guides at the Pitt Rivers Museum. I'm also a current postgraduate student in Visual Material and Museum Anthropology at Oxford. Today, I would like to share with you some information about a collection of shields in the Pitt Rivers Museum's vast collection of ethnographic and archaeological objects. For reference, these shields are located on the top floor of the museum, but you can see them from most other places as well. Here they are circled. These shields come from Papua New Guinea in the South Pacific, specifically the Central Highlands, which is home to the Wahgi people. The shields show characters like the Phantom, an American comic book character, as well as consumer products like tobacco or alcohol. Before discussing the history and imagery of these shields in particular, I think it's important to say a little bit about the Wahgi themselves and their practices. For this, I rely on the work of Michael O'Hanlon, who was a former director of the Pitt Rivers Museum and who studied the Wahgi culture. So, living in the Central Highlands of Papua New Guinea, the Wahgi had fairly limited contact with outsiders until the 1930s, when Australian colonial officials and gold prospectors entered the area. The Wahgi were organized into tribes and clans connected through marriage, trade, and warfare. Tribal warfare, usually taking the shape of prearranged battles between each tribe's selected warriors, was an arena for settling disputes, but also displaying strength and the kind of moral character of a tribe. Photographs from the first Australian expedition, such as this one, show early versions of shields used in warfare. You can see that they're quite tall and would have been held by a handle affixed to the back. They're made from the inner bark of the topi tree, and they're decorated on the outer surface with geometric designs, usually done in kind of paint produced by natural pigments, and topped with feathers from the cassowary bird. During his fieldwork in the area, O'Hanlon found that each set of geometric designs had their own names. So you can see here a schematic for these different shapes and designs. So we have ones called zigzag or owl's wing or bird's foot. But O'Hanlon stresses that his informants, the people among the Wahgi with whom he talked, explained that these patterns themselves didn't really mean anything, but the total effect and the surface of the shield was important because a shiny or vibrant shield reflected the strength of a warrior or his harmony with his community. A dull or pale shield reflected poor moral character or tension within a community. So while the designs themselves might not have had individual meanings, the overall effect of this shield was very significant. However, following the imposition of Australian colonial power in the 1940s, these shields fell out of production and use because the colonial officials and the Christian missionaries in the area were trying to suppress warfare. So these early geometric shields were largely destroyed, or they were repurposed into doors and tables, other kinds of furniture. So we don't have many surviving examples or even photographs of these early geometric shields because of this pacification process. This interaction with foreign forces had a really profound effect on the Wahgi culture because it brought new educational opportunities as well as new economic opportunities, namely the cultivation of coffee. And with this new economic kind of position and attachment to broader markets came an influx of consumer goods like Coca-Cola or South Pacific Lager, tobacco. However, these changes also exacerbated some of the underlying tensions between tribes, and intergroup warfare returned, and as did the making of shields. So it's the second wave of shield production that we're going to look at through some of the examples in the Pitt Rivers collection. These new shields created from the 1970s onwards, served much the same function as the earlier versions. They signaled strength and character of the warrior and his tribe, but they utilized new materials and new imagery that was introduced with colonialism. So commercial paints, metal, and new images from advertising and entertainment became very popular. So let's look closely at one example. Beyond serving as new forms of decoration, the incorporation of consumer goods like South Pacific lager, as seen on this shield, which is decorated to resemble a beer can, also was used to reference the cause of conflict. So in this case, the shield was made for a conflict that resulted from drunkenness. The shield itself and its design refers to that cause of the conflict, which is also a new kind of conflict brought by the Wagai's connection and interaction with new Western goods and people. So, and this is a picture of a South Pacific trading post, and these were scattered throughout the South Pacific islands. In some ways, the shield shows some continuity with the earlier examples. We can see it has geometric borders, it has a glossy surface, but unlike the earlier shields, the ornamentation here has a really particular meaning to the warriors involved. In a similar example, a shield with geometric designs in blue, white, and green bears the words Isuzu warrior. So it refers to the car company, Isuzu, which is a new import to the area, but it also refers to the cause of conflict, which in this case was an automobile accident. So again, you have the shield referencing the problem in the community. But it also, again, picks up on some of these earlier designs. You can see the owl's wing, which is the kind of green triangles on either side of the shield. And you can also see the zigzag or bird's foot pattern that's all around the edges. And then let's look at the phantom example. This is a really interesting case. So in addition to expressing kind of the causes of tribal conflict, like Isuzu and alcohol, the design of these new Wahgi shields also used figures from Western media and pop culture, which they felt aligned with their tribal values. So strength, masculinity, morality. So we can look at these shields of the Phantom in that light. The Phantom was a superhero character from an American cartoon series in the 1930s, which decades later ran in the Papua New Guinea newspaper, the Post-Courier. The Phantom, shown in his trademark suit and eye patches, muscles bulging, sometimes with weapons like axes or pistols, became an overt, very explicit representation of the warrior's masculinity and his moral virtue. The repetition of the Phantom figure across a number of shields, all of these are in the Pitt Rivers collection, highlights another new feature of the shields from this time period. So in earlier periods, in the early 1900s, each Wahgi warrior would have painted his shield individually, however he liked, but the newer shields often matched or had similar themes. And O'Hanlon suggests that this is because they functioned to show unity in the same way that uniforms of athletic teams, like rugby matches, rugby teams or football teams, which were becoming popular in the area, did. So the uniforms show unity and matching shields show unity. So while these kinds of shields may seem very different from their earlier counterparts, both because of their new materials and the new content, they actually show a kind of continuity in cultural practices. At least that's what I think, and that's what O'Hanlon also argues. As Wahgi warfare resumed, shield making resumed, just this time incorporating many newly prevalent materials and visual resources. But ultimately, even the foreign figure of the Phantom, shown here, and the Western consumer goods came to express Wahgi virtues and represent issues within the Wahgi community. Finally, following the exhibition of these shields in museums and publications in the early 2000s, such as at the British Museum and at the Pitt Rivers, the shields themselves became very popular as collectible artworks, collectible objects. And this kind of marked a new transformation in the object. So the shields, I like to think, serve as records of Wahgi engagement with colonialism and consumerism, these huge new forces. They show kind of the creative appropriation of new materials and images, the continuation of a cultural practice, but they also show the multiple lives an object can have. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. And as I said, this was part of the Digital History and Highlights tour of the Pitt Rivers Museum.